John Holyoke. I work for the Tamaki Regeneration company. Looking around the room, I think the vast majority of you already know that. Welcome back. We've also got Rachel Cole and Daniel Southton with us today. Daniel works for Treasury and is supporting us through the project. So look, fair to say we're really excited about today. Last week was a huge milestone for us in releasing the expression of interest invitation for the first phase of development in Tamaki. So a great day. Honestly, going to work at the moment is more and more exciting every day with these milestones that we keep hitting, all these things that are going to make a significant difference for the people of Tamaki. We actually would have liked to have released the EOI a little bit earlier, and you probably would have gathered that through some of the earlier conversations. But it was also really, really important to us that we could answer all the questions that you'll have through this process. Important to us that we could give you commercial confidence as we move forward. I'm really, really confident that we're now in that position and ready to move on. So again, welcome. Today we're going to cover off a few things. We're going to talk a little bit more about the opportunity that we're presenting in the EOI, the development opportunity, the investment opportunity. We're going to talk about the procurement process. That's really important for us. It's the main focus of today. We're going to talk about the EOI evaluation, and of course at the end of the session we're going to take questions from you. Now, important to understand that when we are taking questions, we're really happy to clarify anything that we've already released. But if it's new information that people are looking for, we'll probably direct you to the formal process that we'll be running through the EOI process. So we're not going to repeat too much today. I think, as I said, a lot of people have been to these briefings before. We'll talk a little bit about it. But I think looking around the room, you already know what an incredible opportunity we've got. 880 hectares of amazing space and incredible community that's based 10 minutes from downtown CBD Auckland. So just a little bit to recap on the opportunity that we're talking about. Tamaki, as you know, we've currently got 2,500 social houses in the area. Our job is to redevelop those properties, so we're going to pull down 2,500 houses and replace them with 7,500 houses. Now 2,500 of those properties will come back into the social housing pool. A number of properties will be made available for affordable housing to help people through the stepping stone process, the continuum of coming out of social houses, moving along that continuum and ultimately getting into home ownership. Really important that we also focus on a number of things today. It's not just about building houses. Okay, so I want to remind you about the fact that if we only build houses, we probably won't achieve what we've set out to achieve in terms of the regeneration of the Tamaki area. The reality is building houses is relatively easy, challenging in a brownfields environment. But what we want to achieve is so much more. We want to achieve regeneration, and for us that means providing the opportunity not only for better urban design, for working alongside people that understand the outcomes we're wanting to achieve, but it's also about education, skills, jobs, working together to improve town centres, creating safe and connected neighbourhoods, walkways, paths, cycle lanes, all the things that are truly going to make a difference to the people that live in this area. So this first phase, as you know, we're breaking it down into a number of phases. This first phase is the EOI, is the basis of the EOI that we've just sent out. The first phase is Northern GI. We're taking 1,000 properties and turning it into 2,500 new properties. We're looking for development partners, obviously, and we're also looking for investment partners that are going to ultimately own the social houses and partner with tenancy and property management organisations to run the social houses for a long period of time. I think it's pretty obvious that's what we're looking for in terms of the partners, but I think it's really important that we also talk about who we're looking for. We're looking for people that can work at pace. This is a project, it's got a long pipeline. We're looking for people that are going to walk alongside us, looking for people that are really interested in planning and creating cohesive, vibrant neighbourhoods. Really, really important for us. I think on the investment side, look, we're realistic that the investors are going to be in Tamaki for a long period of time. We're looking for active investors that are going to, again, walk alongside us, work with us to help manage the existing tenants, but also the new tenants as they come on board, so the new tenancies through the new properties as they come on board. We're looking for people that really and truly understand that community. We're looking for people that want to respect the tenants and the residents that live there. We're looking for people that will grow alongside us, who will learn to really understand and love Tamaki. Just a little bit again, without repeating too much. As you know, the first project is for the northern part of Glen Innes or Tamaki, which is basically the Glen Innes area. It's broken down into two stages. First stage will be is the key part of the procurement process, and then with the second stage will be automatically provided to the successful respondents based on performance regime and number of KPIs that we'll put in place during the project. Just one other thing for me to point out before I hand over to Rachel, who's going to talk more about the procurement process itself. We're currently working in some of these spaces, as you'll know. We're providing catalyst projects. This is a really good opportunity for us to think about what's working well in Tamaki, how we can work really closely with the community, how we can achieve some of the other outcomes that I've already spoken about, so that community infrastructure, the social infrastructure that we want to achieve, how do we achieve and create affordable housing for the people that live in the space. So the orange spaces up here, a number of catalyst projects already underway. That's a different process that we're not going to be addressing today.
What I wanted to do is just take you through some of the key elements within the opportunity, and particularly drawing attention to where they differ from other transactions that are in the market at the moment. So looking at the development opportunity first. So we're looking for a partner to enter into a long-term relationship with. And in that partnership, we want to each play to our strengths. So our strength as a Tamaki Regeneration company is that we know Tamaki and we know our people. So we've spent a number of years building their trust and their confidence that if they share with us their vision, their aspiration and their dreams for their community, that we'll capture it and we'll communicate it so that you can bring it to life. So what I'd like to ask of you is please do your homework. Check out the Tamaki Regeneration Company website and read the Tamaki Reference Plan, which was just uploaded in the last couple of days. What it does is it sets out the high-level spatial vision for Tamaki, and it talks about how we're all going to be working in partnership together. So it really clearly sets out the role for TRC, for AT, for Auckland Council Watercare, and our development partners. The second thing that I wanted to say about us as a partner is you can expect us to be pragmatic and realistic. We know that you have to make a commercial return, and you will see contract flexibility reflected in the DA that brings to life what I'm saying about that pragmatism. We're not going to be asking you to do anything that's economically unviable. So, if you're selected as our partner, it will be because you have creativity and best practice at the heart of your development, that you will be excellent at creating a cohesive and vibrant community. You'll understand how to build on the positive aspects of Tamaki and how to enhance those and how to address some of the shortcomings. Through you, we'll see design excellence across a range of typologies: apartments, terraced houses, private market homes and social housing, and design excellence that will be enduring. And we'll need you to create this at pace, because at the moment we have families in Tamaki living in cold, damp houses, and we need to get them out of those homes as quickly as possible. You'll also understand that you're not just building houses, you're building a community. We want to see our streets animated and alive with people out on the streets, making connections and friendships in playgrounds and community gardens, people cycling and walking along our waterways. Working in partnership alongside our community, we want you to take the jewel that's Tamaki and polish it. We want you to create a community that the people there will cherish. So looking at the investment opportunity, as John said, we're looking for an active investor. We want somebody who's aligned to our values and understands whole of life outcomes. This isn't a passive investment opportunity. This is a full service solution. And you have the ability through this project to design and implement a best practice solution to social housing in New Zealand. This spans how you design and construct warm, dry social houses, how you achieve social housing that's got blind tenure, not just from the point where the houses are completed construction, but throughout the 25 years that they're going to be used for social housing tenancies. And this is about how you're going to act as one consortium to implement a mixed tenure approach that achieves everything that mixed tenure aspires for: cohesive, integrated communities that create aspirations for social mobility. So let's have a look at some of the mechanics of this in a bit more detail. As we explain in the EOI invitation, we've made the decision to separate out the procurement of the tenancy management services from this procurement. This procurement will take place once we've selected the preferred bidder, and it will be undertaken jointly. We recognise that this approach brings a degree of complexity, and we recognise that it creates some ambiguity for what role community housing providers should play in this stage of the procurement. I direct you to a series of clarification questions that we've just uploaded to Gets today, and hopefully they provide more clarity in relation to that point. The reason for undertaking a separate procurement process is that the CHIP selected won't just provide tenancy management services in relation to the new social houses that will be delivered through phase 1, but they'll also play an integral role in the delivery of services to the existing social houses that remain within TRC's portfolio. And ultimately, over time, they'll play a key role in the ownership and management of the Tenancy Housing Association. So the selection of this CHIP is critically important to us, and that's why we want to do it in partnership. So the capacity contract will be between the selected CHIP and MSD, and there'll be agreed weekly rent that will be paid through a combination of the income-related rent paid by the tenant and the income-related rent subsidy paid by MSD. The agreed weekly rent is being set based on the unique features of this transaction, so not, for example, set based on market rent. So as a result, it will provide an appropriate return on investment. The actual return received will, however, be dependent on how well the consortium perform against the performance regime. And the performance regime will reflect the things that are of most importance to the Crown. So that's making sure that we always have availability of social houses, making sure that the tenancy management services are really effective, that property management's responsive, and whole of life outcomes in relation to asset management. Crown will retain ownership of the land, the investor will own the capital improvements, and there'll be an appropriate ground lease mechanism in place. As houses are completed through the build program, they'll be added to the capacity contract for a term of 25 years. When the 25-year term comes to an end for each tranche of social houses, there'll be some decisions to be made. The first decision that needs to be made is whether or not MSD still requires social housing places in Tamaki. If MSD does, then it enters into negotiations with the investor. MSD doesn't have a unilateral right to extension of the contract. The contract will only be extended if it's mutually agreed. If there's no agreement, or if the places are no longer required, then the investor has the first option to purchase the Crown's portion of the properties. If the investor chooses not to take up this option, then the properties are sold onto the open market and proceeds will be split between the Crown and the investor. In both of those two situations, the share of the property value will be based on proportions pre-agreed between the Crown and the investor prior to contractual close. So, moving on now to the procurement process, and I'm going to start with the most important slide, and I'm not just saying this because I've got Lynn and Simon in the room with me today. So probity. It's critically important to us that we run a procurement process in line with probity principles. So what that means that you can expect from us is transparency, clarity, due process and confidentiality. So you'll see that in the way that we've designed our clarification question process, the fact that all of these events, we've been filming them and uploading the material onto our website. What we ask from you is that you follow those processes and no canvassing. So a lot of people in the room here today are involved with TRC in other capacities. You might be acting as advisors, you might be involved in the Catalyst projects. I think the simplest thing to do is just no small talk around large scale as you're going about your business as usual duties. If you've got any concerns about the way that we're running the process or the activity of anybody else, please encourage you to get in contact with Lynn Dakin and she'll be able to act on those concerns. As you know, we're running a two-step process. This is the first stage of the process with the EOI, and we'll be looking to shortlist up to 3 respondents, and then we move into the RFP phase. That's a really exciting part of the process for us because we get to work alongside you at that point. We'll be having lots of interactive sessions where you'll be able to test design thinking with us, and we'll be able to clarify and work together. In terms of the procurement timetable, the one date that I really wanted to draw your attention to is the date of the 13th of September. That's the date that we need to get you to come back to us by to let us know that you're intending to submit an expression of interest. The rest of the dates there, the only other one that I wanted to make reference to was December. I know how much you love it when government decides to release an RFP just before Christmas, but I just wanted to give you some assurances that the process proper won't actually start until January. We've built into our timeframes a recognition that that is a down period, so we just really encourage you to use it in terms of reading the documentation. So, clarification questions. These are managed entirely through GETS. You have to still address it to our authorised representative, but what we'll be doing with clarification questions is taking them in-house, drafting up responses, and then either on a daily basis, depending on the volume of questions we get, or maybe every several days, we'll be uploading a document that provides a running record of all clarification questions. So if you if you go in and read the document 3 weeks into the process, you'll see every single question that's been asked up until that point of time. So just keep an eye on that within GETS and make sure that you read that material, because I'm sure it will prove to be very useful to you. You do have the ability in the process as well as to seek that your question is commercial in confidence. We'll take that into the team and make a decision. If we decide that we're not going to treat it as commercial as confidence, we give you the opportunity to withdraw the question. And if we do decide to treat it as commercial in confidence, we'll communicate to you privately. The important date of lodgement. So we've allowed a 7-week period for the EOI responses. I think what we were really trying to do with that is just recognise that this is kind of a relatively unique deal, and different organisations coming together who may not necessarily have a natural synergy yet in New Zealand. So we wanted to allow sufficient time for that to take place. Just a bit of detail there in terms of the lodgement requirements. So we're looking for a single hard copy. We're looking to also have an electronic copy on USB, and if you could put separately on another USB or your financial statements. We're not going to require you to try and cram everything into the one document, but we will give you a bit of leniency there around CVs, organisational charts, etc., outside of that tightly prescribed 40 pages for the EOI. So, moving into the evaluation process. The evaluation is broken into 2 elements, so there's the evaluation of the development component and the evaluation of the investment component. As it says in the EOI, we are prepared to receive EOIs from consortia that are still forming, so effectively developer-led consortia where you're still working through the details of who your investment partner will be, but you will still need to answer the questions in this section and provide responses, and you will still be evaluated on that basis. So we've got further information in the EOI invitation around what we're looking for underneath those particular headings, so I just encourage you to look at that closely. The process that we're using when we undertake the evaluation is what we've decided to do is we look at the different evaluation criteria and see how they align to particular subject matter expertise. So there's a particular focus there around development and the technical skill set that goes along with that, a focus around the strategic and the alignment with our values, and then a focus around commercial financial. Our subject matter experts will evaluate those particular components, score all of the respondents, and then it will go up to an overall evaluation team who will look at those assessments, interrogate the results, and take a decision as to who's going to be recommended for shortlisting. That then goes up to our project steering group, and you can see in the EOI invitation the membership of that steering group before ultimately John takes the decision about who's going to be shortlisted. So, just to conclude by thanking you very much for taking the time to come along today, and as John said, it's great to see so many familiar faces in the audience. We're now going to be moving on to clarification questions. As John says, we're really happy to take any questions that are to do with process. We're very happy to take the time today to clarify any of the material that's within the EOI invitation or what we've presented to you today. If somebody is wanting to scratch a little bit more beneath the detail and try and understand what we've said to a point where it feels like it's new information, what we'll do then is probably direct you to use the clarification question process. That just enables us to make a decision as to whether it's appropriate to release this material at this stage of the process or whether we see that released with the RFP. Thank you.
Some speed? Is there a sort of a set line of thinking about how much pace, or whether there's a line to be found between moving too quickly and bringing the community along with us?
You probably partially answered that question. Obviously we want to move at pace for the reasons that Rachel outlined. You know, the houses at the moment are in pretty poor condition, and we want to move people into better living conditions as soon as we can. But it is it's an existing community. We do have to be very aware of the fact that we need to rehouse people. We've talked about the Tamaki commitment previously, where, you know, if people are currently living in Tamaki, they'll get to stay there. So it's really important that we have those properties available. Now, we'll have views about the pace that we can move at, but we'll also be looking for people to tell us what they think that pace can be. We'll be sitting there, you know, obviously working out whether we think that's reasonable or not.
You talked in the investment opportunity, Rachel, about Crown retaining ownership, which is essentially a leasehold type structure on the completed product. I'd just like to understand whether a freehold purchase was considered, and if it wasn't, or if it's got to a conclusion that it's a leasehold structure, why that's materialised as it has.
Yeah, I mean, we looked at a freehold structure, but leasehold was decided because we wanted, well, to make a Crown contribution towards the project and to also benefit over the long term as the regeneration kicked in. Without getting into too much detail, it's also related to the rental rates that MSD will pay. So we analysed the commercial structure, and a leasehold provides the best value for money for the Crown. It'll be effectively a price signal that's passed through the consortium from the owner of the land, the Crown owner, through to MSD. So it shouldn't affect the commercial returns that the investor faces at all.
G'day, John. 2,500 houses in tranche one, of which I think 1,300 are social houses.
Just to clarify, it probably wasn't very clear. There's up to 1,000 houses in there at the moment that'll come out. We haven't decided exactly how many will come back in social housing, but let's assume 1,000 for today. The 1,300 comes about because of the houses that we're continuing to build over the little while. So what we will be doing is transferring our existing portfolio of new properties to the investor at the same time. Is that what the question was going to be?
Yeah, I suppose it just looked, from a mixed tenure perspective, 1,300 as a percentage of 2,500 looked like quite a high proportion of social housing. So
The 300 aren't, they're dispersed across the whole of Tamaki.
Right.
So when we look at our modelling, we're achieving mixed tenure across Tamaki that sits about 30% with a range sort of from 20% up to 33, depending on what part of the suburb you're in.
Hi, you've mentioned about pace of the project, and looking at the scale of the development for the phase one, we're looking at 2,500 homes. Is there any anticipated time frame on how quickly houses should be built and how long this process is going to take to finish one phase of work?
So it is one of the things that we're looking forward to people to bid back on, but we would expect the first phase to take somewhere between 6 or 7 years in terms of that sort of pace we're looking for. I think the important thing to remember here is that while we are looking for pace and a great number of houses to be built, it's also about the pipeline. It's about guaranteeing the pipeline for this phase of the project over quite a long period of time.
In one of your slides, you talked about social housing, affordable housing, and the rest. Now, is there any limitations? Do you envisage any limitations on the rest of that housing?
No, I think so. If we're talking around about a third coming back into social housing, we'll probably be a little bit prescriptive about what we're looking for in terms of the quality, and particularly around typology, to be able to meet the needs of the existing community and the waiting list that MSD has. In terms of affordable housing, there's probably two or three ways of achieving that. There's obviously market affordable. We'll be looking for developer investment partners to be able to respond to that. We're also, though, looking for assisted affordable products. So we've got some views about how that can work in Tamaki, and we're going to be trialling some of our own models over the next year or so through our Catalyst projects. At the same time, though, we'll be looking for investors and for developers to come back with innovation around how assisted affordable can be provided in the market. In terms of the full market property, no. That's very much developer investor risk. They'll be able to design and deliver, obviously within some constraints that we'll set, but we're not interested in getting into detailed design.
Daniel, I suppose in looking at a lot of these projects over the last number of years, a number of them have been won, or a large number of them have been won by Fletchers. And I was just wondering if you were advising businesses that wanted to come and compete on a process like this, what advice would you give to them?
Read the RFP very carefully.
And just a second question, Daniel, just in relation to, does the Crown have a strong appetite to see offshore partners come into this process?
We have a strong appetite for innovation and value for money, wherever that comes from.
So you're completely agnostic as to where it comes from?
I don't think it's appropriate to comment at this stage about where it comes from, no. I mean, we want to see value for money, innovation, and with a broader Crown hat on, we want that to be spread across New Zealand Inc. But we take each decision on a best for project basis.
Okay.
John, I was just wondering if you could talk about the infrastructure that's going to go with the housing. What would be the responsibility of Tamaki Redevelopment Company, and what would be the responsibility of the developers? I know you've had discussions with water care and so on, and so some of that stuff I guess will be taken off, but community aspects to the development as well.
Sure. So, yep, we've been lucky enough to put an MOU in place for water care, which is very good. So we've been able to set the ground rules in terms of who's paying for what, and at a later date we'll make the detail of that available to everybody. In terms of other infrastructure, we've been working very closely with Auckland Council and AT to agree principles of how infrastructure is going to be funded. Fair to say that we've got agreement that a certain amount of money will be reinvested back into Tamaki, so the local portion of the developer contribution will come back to us. We've agreed principles at this stage, but what we'll do on a project-by-project basis alongside our partners at Panuku and Auckland Council and AT is to work through what the priorities are for a particular project and how much of that money will get invested back in. Second part of your question, I think, is probably about other amenity. We're working really hard at the moment around population projections for the area, so we've got a really good handle on that, working really closely with other government organisations, Ministry of Education, with ADHB to understand what other amenities could be needed. And we'll continue to work alongside community. It's a really important part of the way that we get to our first level of design is that really strong engagement with our community partners to understand what life looks like for them in terms of amenities. Then I think we can work together to make decisions about that. We'll make decisions about what we think is critical and what we can achieve from the funding, and we'll share that with our successful partners. And I think then our partners also need to make a decision about what they want to provide to get the uplift for the community and for themselves.
The Crown leasehold structure, is that under the social housing only, or is it social affordable and market?
Just under the social housing.
Yeah, note your comments around the separate procurement for CHP for tenancy management services. Is there any intent to provide like a unified set of terms or assumptions around what people should assume in relation to that entity?
We definitely will provide all of that information once we get to RFP. So once we're in the RFP stage, we'll be releasing the full capacity contract with the schedules that relate to the tenancy management requirements, anything to do with the performance regime and the payment mechanism, and any other assumptions that we believe respondents need to make to be able to further develop their proposal while we wait for the second procurement to happen. At this stage in the process, we don't feel that it's material to people completing their EOIs.
As I said when I opened up today, this is an incredibly exciting day for us. Getting our EOI out is amazing. This is all about, better outcomes for the people of Tamaki. So that's what makes us excited. We want to work with people that share that vision and want to walk shoulder to shoulder with us. Great opportunity now. Look around, see who's here, continue to have those great conversations and make friends that might be part of your consortia. So yeah, thank you very much for coming today. We really appreciate it.